So to start this off, from Mark Wayne Mullen, pray for our U.S. National Guard tonight. This was a horrific tragedy, and there's a lot to go through with this. I've got updates from all kinds of people in D.C. I'm just going to start with this segment from Fox News, which, I mean, straight out, the suspect is in custody after the troops were shot. Like I said in the opening, he's an Afghan national, so we'll get into some details with that, or at least as much details as they've updated us with so far. So let's give this a play.
Who's on the Armed Services Committee. Senator, we were going to have you on to talk about something completely different, and now we are caught in the middle of this breaking news, praying for 2 National Guard members, and we don't know how badly they've been injured. They've been shot here in D.C., just about a mile away from the White House. It's an incredible moment, an incredible scene, because this is supposed to be one of the safest places in the district. There are supposed to be so many officers all across this area. This is just a little bit north of Lafayette Square. I know you've been there quite a few times. Just give me your first thoughts as we watch this scene unfold. Again, we don't know what the motive is here. We don't know what this guy was up to, whether he was targeting these troops, or maybe they just got caught up in something.
Well, Aisha, first of all, it breaks our hearts because we're running up to Thanksgiving. We know these men and women, they're willing to protect 100% of our freedom by sacrificing their own life. But you never want to see this happen on our own streets right here and our nation, much less in the nation's capital, literally within eyeshot of the White House. Some of the pictures that are circulating online, I haven't been able to verify if they're true or not. But, you know, they're very disturbing. They look like they're pretty serious injuries. I agree with Chris. It's too hard to know right now if they were actually targeted or not. They may have been intervening. I know that anyone walking around in the uniform and they would see someone in distress, they would be running towards the threat, because that's what our men and women do in uniform. They run towards the threat. And right now, I believe that Secretary Kristi Noem said it best. We need to be praying for them. We also need to be praying for their families as well. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're not quite informed yet. And so every family member that has their loved ones deployed in our nation's capital right now with the National Guard, I know they're glued to your TV and they are concerned. They're probably calling their loved ones, want to know if they were the ones that were targeted or if they were the ones that was part of this incident. And all we can do is stand by and wait for answers. I will say, though, Aisha, it's telling. If Secretary Kristi Noem, who I was visiting with last night, and I know she's with her family for Thanksgiving as well, if she put out the statement that said we need to be praying for them, that'll probably tell you the seriousness of the injuries.
Wow. Okay. That's a good point. I know that imagine that members of the White House, that are the staff that are working there, are feeling like this is way too close for comfort. Thankfully, the president is nowhere near the area right now, but the White House is monitoring the situation. The president has been briefed. I don't know if you've spoken with the president today. We're waiting to see if he says anything on Truth Social or through his comms department, but what would the president be thinking about the situation right now? And how do we keep the people who are here to protect us, how do we protect them?
Well, I haven't spoken to the president today. I don't know if I will or not, but I know the president, he always says we need to stop the killing. He's been laser focused on bringing down the crime in all the major cities. He just like he is with the wars around the nation, he wants to stop the killing. He wants to bring law and order back to the streets. And it's you don't want to say this, but it does go without saying to some degree that this is the type of crime that was taking place in Washington, D.C. before President Trump deployed the National Guard. He brought peace to some degree into the streets of Washington, D.C. Aisha, you've walked around those streets. You saw what it was like way before the National Guard was deployed. It was disturbing to be able to walk or even drive down the streets in some locations in Washington, D.C. That has completely changed.
Only a few blocks from the White House, by the way.
You've seen strollers that are being pushed by mothers. You're seeing people transport their kids with bicycles again, with car seats on them, literally. You're seeing people be able to go about their normal day. That's because of President Trump. So I know he's paying attention to this. I know his heart's going out for him, and I know President Trump.
He must have been watching you, Senator, because he just posted here on Truth Social. I'm going to read it in full here. This is the president saying the animal that shot the 2 National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in 2 separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency, am with you. Senator, your thoughts?
Yeah. That's President Trump for you. And I can tell you, because I know him so well, I guarantee he'll also be on the phone with their families, because I've never seen a man care so much
no doubt.
For his military than President Trump. And, you know, he's going to take, this will take priority to him. And I guarantee all these individuals involved will be brought to justice.
Okay, Senator, thank you for joining us and giving us your insight on this.
All right. Well, in my instant first thought when I learned of what happened, Democrat rhetoric, their violent language, calling Border Patrol and ICE and federal agents and even the military and likening them to Trump's Gestapo, Trump's secret police. And it's not only despicable, but it's also dangerous, which might have led to this incident. I mean, who knows what this man has been watching lately, who he's been paying attention to in the media. And it wouldn't surprise anyone if he was radicalized by the mainstream media and Democrat violent rhetoric against law enforcement, which does include the military, by the way. Politicians in Chicago, for example, they're calling the military awful names like Trump's Gestapo, entering the city and kidnapping innocent civilians. And it's dangerous. And their hateful words lead to things just like this. Anyway, so this is from Dan Bongino. FBI personnel are assisting with the investigation into the shooting of our National Guard members in D.C. Please take a moment and pray for these heroes and their families. God bless America and all those who defend her. That was about 5 hours ago. As of this recording, it was 3:43 p.m. FBI Director Kash Patel, the FBI is engaged and assisting with the investigation in D.C. after National Guard members were shot this afternoon. Please pray for them, and we will update with more information as we are able. And I've got a quote. Also, Kash Patel delivering his remarks. This is from Rapid Response 47 about 3 hours ago.
2 of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice. Since this is an assault on a federal law enforcement officer, this will be treated at the federal level as an assault on a federal law enforcement officer. The FBI will lead out on that mission with our interagency partners, to include the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, ATF, DEA. And we're thankful for the mayor's assistance in this matter, the Metropolitan Police Department and their skills in investigating homicides and gun shootings in this city is exceptional. We will work together collaboratively because this is a matter of national security, because it's a matter of pride. President Trump has been informed. We've been in contact with the White House. We will shortchange the American public with no resources to make sure we find and safeguard our nation's capital right here in Washington, D.C., and bring anyone responsible for this heinous act of violence to justice. I would lastly like to add to the American public and the world, please send your prayers to those brave warriors who are in critical condition and their families. They are here serving our country. They are here protecting everyday Americans and citizens around the world in our nation's capital. They are the heroes of this day, and we must remember them on this day and every day, and their families and the sacrifice they have made.
Yeah, and the day before Thanksgiving, no less. And he might have actually chose this day just to hit us in our morale, and I don't know. But the federal government, they use the death penalty, though, right? I believe they use Terre Haute prison for federal death row. So I would have no doubt in my mind, if that's still the case, they're definitely going to be seeking that. So this is from the FBI. The FBI continues to investigate this afternoon's shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C. If you have any information, please call 1-800-CALL-FBI or visit tips.fbi.gov. And this is from DOW Rapid Response Secretary of War Pete Hegseth on the shooting that took place earlier today.
Very productive meetings, but I want to start by saying after those meetings, myself and my team were notified that 2 National Guardsmen have been shot in Washington, D.C., critically wounded. The shooter shot in a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America, heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C., serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. They were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they love their fellow Americans. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional
500 troops,
National Guardsmen to Washington, D.C. This will.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what Democrats have to say about that. Are they actually going to push back against that? Because they have it every single turn so far.
Only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence,
yeah, they're approaching
against
7,000 arrests
Americans'
in D.C. since
we'll
early
back
August.
down. President Trump will
And that's
never
just federal
back down.
agents.
That's why the American people elected him. America and our warriors, our National Guardsmen, are strong. And so we're following this very closely. We're getting information rapidly. I mentioned the faith of this country, the Christian faith, the prayers. I would ask for prayers for our National Guardsmen.
Excuse me, Mr.
Appeals to heaven for our National Guardsmen, for their families, on bended knee as a War Department, as a nation.
Excuse me.
We will never back down. And we think about them right now.
Venezuela.
We had a couple of great
Venezuela.
meetings
Dude, fuck
with the
off.
President and Minister
Venezuela.
of Defense here, where we are dedicated
Not appropriate.
to the counter-cartel effort here. Criminality knows no boundaries, whether it's the United States of America and Washington, D.C., or it's the Caribbean and the Western Hemisphere. We are going to go after narco-terrorists.
Okay, now he's pivoting.
Our borders will be secured, whether it's the Dominican Republic or the United States of America, and we look forward to working with our partners to make it happen. You know, President Trump believes in a clear principle: peace through strength.
Right.
You get peace by being strong. And if you're a narco-terrorist who wants to bring drugs to the United States of America, we will find you, we will fix you, and we will finish you. Because we have all the rights in the world. We've got lots of attorneys and lots of intel analysts, and we know exactly who we're targeting and why. If you're involved in that conduct, we will kill you. It's that deadly serious because of the poison that has made its way into the American public for far too long. President Trump is serious about it. We're serious about it. And we're proud to be working with the Dominican Republic, another country very serious about ensuring that cartels don't set the agenda. We do. Thank you very much. It's been a great series of meetings.
Thank you very much.
Well, a comment on the narco-terrorism, they probably have assets and resources up in the air that's probably keeping track as to where these drugs are being manufactured, and they're trucking those drugs to the boats, and then the boats start off into the ocean. Maybe that's how that they know precisely what it is that they're transporting. They're probably watching them from the time they start packaging everything up to the time that it hits the water. But all right, anyway, so from Rapid Response 47, Vice President Vance, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen.
Apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago, and we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out, but what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them. Apparently there was
Okay, so we've got this one from Kelly Loeffler. The targeted attack on two National Guard members in Washington is a national tragedy. These brave soldiers working across D.C. are selfless young heroes who have left home to restore safety to the city and its people, despite the officials here who demonize them. My heart aches for the victims and their families. We lift them up in prayer along with all members of the military, and we pray that justice is delivered swiftly amid this senseless act of violence. This is from the White House, which they already read that, so I won't read it a second time, so we just heard it in that news segment from Donald J. Trump's True Social account. This is from Secretary Chris Wright, who is the Secretary of Energy. And he says, please join me in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were brutally shot in Washington, D.C. this afternoon. We lift up their families and loved ones, and we are deeply grateful to our first responders and National Guard who worked around the clock to protect us. We stand with you today and every day. And from HHS Secretary Scott Turner, Lord, we pray for peace in D.C. and we pray for the National Guardsmen. Please comfort their families and bring justice as only you can. Amen. And Speaker Mike Johnson, a suspect is now in custody following the tragic events in D.C. this afternoon. Please join us in prayer for the National Guardsmen who were shot near the White House today and pray with us for their loved ones, too. The National Guard has done heroic work this year, working around the clock to make our nation's capital safe again. We are forever grateful for the swift actions of law enforcement and for all those who risk their own lives to protect everyone else. And moving to the other side of the aisle from Nancy Pelosi, our family is praying for the West Virginia Guardsmen, their loved ones, and their unit after today's horrific shooting in D.C. We condemn this violent act and thank the heroic first responders for rushing to the scene. And we've got this from Afton Ben. There's more to follow on her a little bit later. My heart is with the 2 National Guards members and their families. These service members didn't ask to be put in this position. They signed up to serve their community and their country, and they should never be targeted for following orders. And if you haven't been keeping up with my show, and if you haven't been keeping up with politics in general, she's the Democrat candidate for Congress in Nashville, Tennessee. She's kind of been embroiled in some controversy lately because her social media history has been getting dug up, and she's got a lot of pretty radical far left positions, to say the least, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So she has a second part to this. We need a full and transparent investigation, and the federal administration should not use this as an excuse to deploy even more troops into American cities. Of course, she had to give kind of a backhanded follow-up with that. And so from yours truly, in other words, stand down and let criminals continue wreaking havoc over innocent Americans. Fuck that. Okay, so moving on to the next member of Congress, from Rep. Dan Goldman. I am disgusted by the murders of 2 National Guards members near the White House today. My heart breaks for them and their families. Thank you to the brave first responders who apprehended the suspect. This gun violence is un-American and unacceptable. Well, I would say the terrorism, for the countless umpteenth time that countless amounts of people say that it ain't the guns, it's the people. Of course, it's the people. It ain't the guns. Guns are paperweights, and unless they're put into the hands of people who are willing to commit those atrocities. All right, Rep. Jason Crow, I'm horrified by today's tragic shooting of 2 brave National Guardsmen. Our service members are the very best of America. Violence like this is unacceptable. My heart is with them, their families, and the dedicated men and women of our National Guard. And he's responding with CBS News. 2 National Guard members shot in Washington, D.C., suspect in custody, officials say, which if you're interested from CBS News' perspective, that'll be linked. And move into RT. New suspect in the National Guard shooting in D.C. has been identified as Ramanullah Lakhanwal, according to CBS, a 29-year-old Afghan national who entered in 2021, which was happened to be the same exact year that the Biden withdrawal was happening from Afghanistan. So I'm sure he was most likely, if not most certainly, on one of those flights out of Afghanistan heading straight for the U.S. because they loaded up those planes. You remember that? When they loaded up those planes, just absolutely just filled with Afghan civilians, probably some terrorists mixed in with them because I'm sure they weren't vetting them. They were just crowding around the planes and just running up into them, even to the point where the planes were taking off with people hanging off the wheels and literally falling out of the sky. So this is from 6 hours ago. Same thing, RT. 1 National Guardsman apparently shot in the head. Law enforcement swarming the scene. Several others reported injured. Because this is YouTube, I'm not gonna go further with that post. It looks like they blurred it out, but sometimes things get a little spicy for YouTube, so I don't really want to chance it, at least not right now. But I will repost it, and a direct link to my profiles in the description below, or you could just head straight to RT. They post constantly, so you might have to scroll a while before you get to it, but it was at 3:02 p.m. today. And New York Post, Afghan national Ramanullah Lockenwall, who came to the U.S. in 2021, Withdrawal, ID'd as alleged gunman in shooting of 2 National Guard members in D.C. sources, and they shared a few images. And let's see if we can briefly go through this for just a quick minute, see if there's anything additional that they have with this. So this was posted at 7:27 p.m. So it's still, about an hour and a half before before this recording at this time. So the crazed gunman who shot 2 National Guard troops in a possible terror attack near the White House Wednesday has been identified as a 29-year-old Afghan national who came to the U.S. during the chaotic 2021 Afghan withdrawal, law enforcement sources told the Post. Ramanullah Lockenwall was allegedly lying in wait before he rounded the corner near the Farragut West Metro Station in Northwest D.C. around 2:15 p.m., then opened fire, striking a female guard in the chest before shooting her in the head, according to law enforcement sources. And there's an image of the scene. Matter of fact, my daughter and my mother and my brother and my sister are all in D.C. right now for Thanksgiving. So that's kind of got me on edge a little bit. Although it appears that it's most likely going to be an isolated event. Plus, President Trump announced that he's descending the National Guard all over D.C., over at least 500 National Guardsmen. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up doubling that number. So Lockenwall, who entered the country under Operation Allies Welcome and resettled in Bellingham, Washington, then allegedly fired at and struck the second guard until a third guard stationed nearby rushed to the area and took him down, the sources said. The 2 armed soldiers who were patrolling the streets when the suspect launched his rampage were taken to a nearby hospital in critical condition, authorities said. The suspect, who was reportedly shot 4 times, was hauled away nearly naked in an ambulance and acted alone. So they shot him. So, and according to the New York Post, they shot him 4 times. So is he going to make it? Not sure. Police have not revealed a motive for the attack. Law enforcement sources said the FBI is initially treating the shooting as a potential act of terrorism. Yeah, that's almost certainly what it was. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser told reporters Wednesday afternoon that it was a targeted shooting in which one individual appeared to target these guardsmen. The shooting, described as an ambush, erupted near Farragut Square in northwest D.C., a bustling area filled with retail stores and restaurants. Great. Both President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance were not in D.C. at the time of the shooting, with Trump in Florida and Vance visiting troops in Kentucky. Trump has since ordered 500 additional National Guard troops to be sent to D.C. Quote, "We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities," Secretary of War Pete Hegseth told reporters Wednesday. President Trump asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. There were approximately 2,100 National Guard troops assigned to D.C., including about 900 from the D.C. National Guard and roughly 1,200 from other states, a Pentagon official told the Post. Last week, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to withdraw the National Guard from D.C., but paused that order from going into effect until December 11th to give time for an appeal. Roughly 90,000 Afghans were allowed entry into the U.S. and became eligible for special immigrant visas under the Biden administration's Operation Allies Refuge, or OAR, and Operation Allies Welcome, OAW programs, which provided the foreign nationals immigration processing and resettlement support. In June, U.S. officials identified 55 Afghan evacuees on the terrorist watch list who had immigrated from the Middle Eastern country during the botched operation, according to a Justice Department Inspector General report. Absolutely ridiculous. And as far as this goes, look, I know they're like with Operation Iraqi Freedom, like pretty much anything that we do with regard to not only the Middle East, but in just pretty much any country. If you've got locals that are helping the U.S. military and they're actually giving them intel that's going to lead to the capture of higher ups or the discovery of a stash or cache of weapons, things like that. Like often, from my understanding, is that the military or the U.S. government will give them assurances that if they want, they can travel and get permanent residency in America as a refugee or asylum seeker, because if they're given intel to the U.S. military and then the military takes care of business and then that person's just cut loose out onto the street, essentially, it makes them a target because they were helping out the U.S. military. And whoever we're fighting out there, they might feel some kind of way about that, and they might handle that dude accordingly. So, I mean, look, so some of these Afghan civilians that traveled here, if they were helping the military, that's one thing. I don't really have a beef with that. If they were helping the military in a genuine way to try to help their country get better, then I don't have an issue with that. If they're going to, immigrate over to the U.S. after, providing assistance to the U.S. military, or even someone who's translating, for example. I think sometimes that they have local Afghans help translate, the ones who happen to speak English. But, of course, it was Biden, and it was the Democrats under Biden who were handling this. Doesn't sound like they were vetting everybody. Sounds like they all just poured onto the plane, and they're like, yeah, just whoever will fit, fuck it. We'll just take whoever ends up on the plane. Anyway, so the report found the Biden administration failed to properly vet U.S.-bound refugees as the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan. After investigations, the FBI eventually removed 46 evacuees from the watch list, determining that they posed no threat to the homeland. However, 9 remained in the terror database as of July 2024, and 8 were in the U.S. This is a breaking story, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see if this individual that targeted these National Guardsmen happened to be one of those 9, or even more alarming, if it was one of those roughly 50 that were on the terror watch list who turned out to be taken off the list because he doesn't pose a threat. So, let's hope it's not the latter. I mean, if anything, I don't know, man. All right, so this comes from Newsmax. Can you imagine the impact this has on an already deranged leftist or an illegal alien who's already hating Trump for not letting illegals get away with breaking our laws anymore? Karl Higbee explains how dangerous rhetoric from the Democrats can lead to unfortunate outcomes, and it can.
And beyond that, Democrats have been in the media saying that Trump is deploying the National Guard, and that is illegal. We just had this ruling that's been stayed for now, calling it anything from an illegal occupation to dangerous or whatever else.
Well, let's be clear that it is illegal, in fact, to call out the National Guard or to send troops into American cities. The Posse Comitatus Act prohibits that.
I mean, can you imagine the impact this has on an already deranged leftist or an illegal alien who's already hating Trump for, not letting illegals get away with breaking our laws anymore, or for people who are just criminals to begin with? I mean,
yeah, and some people are, well, it's just words. Words aren't violence. It's just the First Amendment. Like, yeah, tell the ancestors who were survivors of the freaking Holocaust after the fucking Third Reich. Like Hitler, did he just brute force his way into ruling over Germany with an iron fist? No, dude, he used his words, he used his voice, his power of persuasion.
Those types of people are taking Democrats
know what
like
they're doing.
Battle cry. In their mind, Trump is illegally deploying troops to cities, they say. Then the drumbeat of people like Slotkin saying that people should be nervous about troops shooting citizens, or that, Trump is a dictator, or it's a Nazi, fascist, whatever.
The Gestapo, the secret police, so on and so
Secretary
forth.
of Defense is creating units, official military units, to quite frankly watch the American people. And that's the thing that is absolutely abhorrent. It reminds
I mean, it's like they just sit there twiddling their thumbs, just staring at the wall or the ceiling, just thinking about like how much more like violent can I ratchet up my language? Like, what else can I inject? They're probably using Chat GPT to help them out, to try to see like how hyperbolic that they can possibly get their language, and then they just do these stupid freaking news segments.
so much of what happened in Germany in the 1930s.
Shut up. This is
No
what
shit,
fuels
man.
this
Shut
stuff.
up, dude.
Then further, those same crazies, they see the activist judges blocking Trump from sending
They're
troops,
using the
and then they
tactics
go on air and call
that
it
Nazi Germany were
unconstitutional.
employing
And
to
even
effectively
folks,
brainwash
even
their
after
fucking
the
citizens.
Ninth Circuit Court has ruled that it is constitutional on 2 separate occasions for Trump to send National Guard troops into both California and Oregon. The liberal media doesn't even advertise that, but rather likens Trump's law and his law and
That
order
happened
to Nazi Germany. And then they publicize the rogue Democrat-appointed judges that rule against the president because it supports their personal bias against Trump.
Of course, yeah, they platform the hell out of them.
People
they're judicial heroes
on the backs of it. The blood is literally on the hands of the people who've perpetuated this. Is unbelievable.
Yep, and you think they're going to slow down? Hell no. Of course they're not. No, they're going to send their prayers for the troops and for the National Guardsmen. They'll say that today, and then you'll see what they're going to say tomorrow or maybe on Friday with regard to Trump sending 500 National Guardsmen. I almost can't wait to hear what they say about that, because they're just not going to be able to contain themselves. So this is from Libs of TikTok. Democrat leaders and activists claimed the National Guard is rounding black people up and putting them in detainment camps. Now, 2 National Guardsmen were just assassinated.
We believe that the National Guard and the military occupation is the first step into rounding black people up and putting them in detainment camps here in Washington, D.C. and around the United States of America.
How do you like that?
We believe that.
Oh, I'm sure you do believe that, because you're psychopathic.
If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Check out The Swamp, Monday through Friday at 11 p.m. Eastern, with segments dropping on the daily. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.